Hey, welcome back and thanks for watching. This is a follow-up video on the Massey Mower deck. Did one the other day and had some comments. I'm going to talk about some of those comments here in a moment. I'm also going to show you the gauge wheels and the gauge wheel adjustment in this video. And then I'm going to wrap up showing you the wind speed. You're like, what's wind speed? That's coming out of the deck. So how far, how much, air volume and speed am I really going to get, for blowing these leaves. So we're going to test it. So stick around. All right. So what did I do that was so bad in that last video, safety wise? So two things for sure. One was I used my hand to feather the tractor and move it a little bit while I was not in the seat. Number two, I connected the PTO shaft of the mower while the tractor was running. So both are no-nos, but let's just talk about the risks associated with doing that, because I do think a lot of tractor owners are going to do stuff like that. It's just the reality. I say don't do it. Don't do as I did, but it is just the reality that stuff like that is going to happen. So what are the risks? So as far as moving the tractor when you're not in the seat, what do I need to say about that? Obviously not a good idea. I did do I was in the grass at the time, and the deck was down. So, I felt it was kind of low risk. If I would have been on a uneven surface, of course, or even just the flat concrete here, it's going to roll a little more freely. So that would have been, I think, a higher risk scenario. But still, there's risk associated with doing that. And I would say, probably don't do that. As far as hooking up the PTO shaft, the risk there's, I guess, two risks. One is if it were to pop in gear and the shaft starts spinning while I'm trying to hook it up. And number two would be if my hand hits the hydrostatic transmission fan blade. So there's a plastic fan, and I'll show you some video of that now, that's up in there that you, in theory, could hit with your hand. So in my case, I've got the Retail Rems Sentinel plate, and I'm showing you video of that now, of course. And I think, touching that with your fingers is a pretty low chance with that plate on. It's possible, but pretty low chance. So then the second thing is, well, what if that PTO shaft went into gear? Well, it's a two-handle operation. I'm going to show you that now. Unfortunately, when I videoed this, I did the 540 PTO, but this is the same process for the 2000 mid PTO. You got to flip a handle, and then that's step one. And then step two, you have to pull the clutch down, and that's got a locker on it where you have to pull the handle out and down in order to get it to engage. So there would have had been a lot of fails in order for that risk to be realized, but even so, the risk is there. So I wanted to say, don't do that. I'm not recommending that. That's just how I did it in the last video. Okay, in the first one here, as I was editing the video, I realized I also did not talk about the seat safety switch. So I have mine zip tied down. So here are the conditions, kind of how that works. So the first scenario here is I am in neutral. The brake's drawn. The brake, I can tell you, locked, has no impact on this at all, but the brake was drawn. I was in neutral. I let up on the seat safety switch, and the tractor keeps running. The next scenario, I just put it in gear and then let up on the switch. And then in that scenario, the tractor shuts down. So why do I have it zip tied? Well, it's not the safest configuration per the book, but when I first got the tractor, I was, I was looking up, looking at the loader several times, and the tractor shuts off. You just lift up just the slightest little bit and the tractor shuts off. And that's just not good. I just don't think that's safe. So I have it zip tied down. So that's how I'm operating. I know a lot of other people do it that way too. So I welcome the comments below telling me I should not be doing that. And then the last thing, this isn't really safety, but it was just as far as these pins. I'm telling you, these pins are bigger than the holes I'm trying to put them in. I definitely had to grind them out. Someone had commented that, well, maybe if you had the front bracket disconnected, that would give you play. It definitely gives you more play if you do that, but the hole is just super tight, and I had to grind it out. That was the only way that thing was going to get in there, at least on the right-hand side of the tractor. And then last up here, before I show you this wind speed stuff, it's the deck height. So the recommendation in the manual is to set your height with the gauge wheels, not with the knob and the hydraulic controls. You could do that, at least in my case, and I'd love to get some feedback on this. It looks like the deck's not really even all the way around if you use that method. So tell me what you think. I mean, the manual says that the deck should be 5.9 inches off the ground. I'm running my brackets a little low because I want to make sure I clear that retail rims step, and I want to give myself a little, extra space hooking up the PTO shaft. But still, it's not at the same height all the way around. So I'm guessing that if you're floating the deck and not running on the gauge wheels, you are getting an uneven cut maybe, or the blades are not engaging evenly across the grass. That's definitely something I'd love to hear feedback from others on, to see if you are experiencing that. Oh, and then there's one more thing. This thing of the mid-mount mower and the 3-point operating together. So someone commented and said, take a look and you'll see why that is. So I took a look and I can actually absolutely see why that is. So if you look on the right-hand side of the tractor here, there's no mechanical connection between the rear and the mid raise lift function. If you go over on the other side of the tractor, and I should be showing you that now, there's a mechanical connection there that connects those two when you raise or lower. So that's why they operate together. And if you limit the travel of one, you are limiting the travel of the other. So as I was editing this video, I realized that someone's going to say, yeah, but you can lock the deck, but still lower the rear 3-point. So they're not, linked, to one another as I suggested. And that's true. So there is a knob under the seat that allows you to lock the mid-mount mower mostly in the up position. It does drop down a little bit when you drop the 3-point lever. And that's why there's actually sort of appears to be not a one-to-one relationship between the drop, because you can drop it a little bit and there's a little play in the arm, and then the rest of the play comes in the rear, where that link arm connects to the 3-point lift in the rear, and you can see that sort of sliding forward, and that's what allows the 3-point to continue to drop when the deck is locked in the lift position. Now, I can't really get in underneath there and see how that lock mechanism works. I'm sure someone else has done that, but it clearly locks it, but still allows the free play in the rear, obviously. All right, next up, the gauge wheels. Real quick, I'll show you that 3-point pine straw rake and how I use the long pins to make it fit on the quick hitch. I mentioned that in the last video too. So for the deck height, you got the 4 gauge wheels, and then you've got the front, they call it a wheel, but it's really a roller. And then you've got this chart here that shows you how to set your height. So it's really, there's really on the roller, there's really only 2 positions, L and H, unless you're cutting your grass really tight. H is probably going to be the position for you. So then you're just going to have to worry about the 4 wheels. And what we have here on the wheels, we have an X and a Y hole here. And then on the wheel shaft, there's A through E, so 5 holes there. So really all you got to do is just say, how high do you want the grass to be? So let's say you want it to be 2 inches. So that means you're going to want to be in hole Y and hole D. You line them up and you pop the pin in. So you got to line them up like that, and then it goes. So that's, the 2-inch height. You really can't mess it up if you say, well, X and D don't line up. That's not a valid combination. So they've got it set up so you can do all the heights listed in the chart. And that's pretty simple, I think. Although when I first saw the chart, I was like, what in the world is this? And how do I read it? So hopefully that quick demo helps. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up here this evening, getting kind of late here now. So I've always wanted one of these meters to measure air speed, wind speed. So I got one, and I wanted to check the Massey and see how fast, the blowing effect I was getting out of the deck would be. So you don't even want to see that whole video. Talk about safety issues. But I'll show you the results. I was getting like 15, 16 mile per hour out of the Massey, and that's with the chute down. So then I pulled out the Cub Cadet LT1018. It's got a 19 horsepower gas engine in it, 42-inch deck. Compared to that, now that was up in the 27, 28 mile an hour range, so significantly faster. However, obviously a much smaller deck as far as width and even depth for getting into the leaves. So I still really think that the Massey's going to do better overall, but we're going to find out. I will tell you one thing. I was reminded of why I like raking the leaves and pushing them instead of grinding them, because this is surveillance video. Look at that dust storm. Holy cow. I mean, it really, I've got some bare areas of the yard there on the side. And when it's been dry for several days, a lot of dust. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for this video. As always, I appreciate you watching, and stay tuned for the next time, which should be some leaf cleanup videos. Take care.